We're back in June. I'm Susan Reiter. I am one of the community outreach liaisons over at Aurora Behavioral Health. You were met by Cindy Brooks, who's our director of our business office at the hospital, since our dear Russell Torres is enjoying the 100-degree heat in Las Vegas. But he will be back next month, so do not worry. Next month's seminar will also be held here at the church, and then hopefully, cross your fingers, our construction, which was supposed to be done in October, will be done so that we can be back at the hospital in August. So for those of you who have never attended before, this is part of a monthly series that we do January through October, and we invite different speakers from across the community to come in and do continuing educations on a host of both mental health topics as well as substance abuse and alternative therapies that allow a crossover for both. This month, I'm going to be passing, as opposed to passing the collection plate, I thought that would be a little bad, I'm passing the big white bowl for you to put your business card into. So I will start on this side, and then you can pass it around and put your business card. We'll be doing a business card drawing that Soleil will be talking about a little bit later with regard to having an opportunity to experience hands-on some of the treatment that she's doing out in her practice. So drop your business card in, we'll draw it at the very end. It'll go all the way around. Some housekeeping issues. If you need to use the restrooms, they're through the double doors and to the left. The exit is where you came in, so it's through the double doors and to the right. We also have emergency exits just clearly on that side if you need to get out of here. Earthquake, flood, tsunami, anything else that might hit us in San Diego. If you could silence your phones, that would be great. You can put it on vibrate, I don't mind, we'll all hear it. But if you need to take a call, feel free to run out into the hallway and then take it. I know some of you are on call for your various and sundry agencies, so we totally understand. And for those of you who need CEUs, we will have certificates at the front where you actually signed in. They'll be alphabetized by your name. And so as long as you signed in, there will be a certificate waiting for you to pick up. And it can also be used as a certificate of attendance or certificate of completion for your various agencies. So depending upon what you need it for. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker. We are really, really lucky to have Soleil with us. She is a Phoenix Rising yoga therapist, which is a somatic therapy that is being used across the country. And she recently came down to San Diego after being in Seattle for a number, Seattle? 25 years. So she is a master instructor and a trainer. And so she teaches this technique in addition to having a private practice here with which she actually uses it as a practitioner. So she's going to have an opportunity to talk all about what the technique is, how it can be used, either adjunctively or in lieu of traditional therapies with individuals who have substance abuse and a variety of different mental health conditions. And so if you will please give a very, very warm welcome to Soleil.
Okay, keep clapping, keep clapping. Look in your hands. How are you clapping? Maybe switch. Put the other hand on top. Notice the difference. So that clapping's really for Susan because every month, most every month, she brings some really new and interesting ideas and thoughts out to the work that we do, and so I just really want to honor her. But also, clapping came to me as something that happened really interesting a few months ago. Now, as you heard, I just moved down from Seattle, and something that you all do here in San Diego that we don't do much of in Seattle is have these wonderful house concerts, right? And so I'm at this house concert. You go to someone's house, and they have these wonderful musicians who come and play for you, right? Now, oftentimes, you do it outside. Seattle, we would never think of doing that outside. But this one was during the winter, and so we did it inside. And we were in chairs very much like how you are, in a tiny little living room, all right next to each other. And out comes these two wonderful women who are going to sing for us. And they have these wonderful love songs. In fact, they're called the Lovebirds. Have you ever heard of them? Yeah. Aren't they fabulous? I know. I love them. So we're there and we're clapping, yay, you know, and at some point I get a little antsy. You know, I need to move a little bit. So there's not much space, so I'm inching out, excuse me, right? And I'm inching out and I go to the back. There's a tiny little space where I can stand. And they finish another wonderful song and we're all clapping. And for some reason, I don't even know why, I switch my hands and start clapping in this other way. And I thought, oh, it's very different. Why is that different? Well, I thought if people were actually looking at me, now I was in the back, but if people were actually looking at me, I thought, wow, I think I feel more creative here. I'm more original here. If someone actually saw me right now, they'd say, she is really interesting, you know? Now, I know there's no difference. You can't see the difference whether I'm clapping one side or the other. But inside my own body, I was going, oh, and these were my words, interesting, special, unique, creative, you know? So, I leave that concert. And I do, of course, we all do our work, don't we? So my work is this body awareness thing. And I'm like, wow, I really want to check in and see what that means to me. And so I went back and started playing, and I realized that I have these two parts to me. I have this part that claps like this all the time, right? And it's kind of same old, you know? It's the part of me that fits in, right? But then I have this part of me that stands out, that's creative and interesting. And I've been developing these two parts of me for many, many years. So in the 80s and 90s, for 20 years of my work life, I was in high tech. And I worked at all the big companies, Microsoft and Adobe and Getty Images. And in the 80s, especially when I started, there weren't many women in the field. In fact, it was filled with a bunch of young, geeky men, right? And I was a young, geeky woman. So I stood out. And for 20 years, for most of my time in high tech, I really stood out. And I really appreciated actually being in that role. So I get to 2001. And I recognize that I can't stand what I'm doing anymore. And I am totally burned out. Totally burned out. I have had probably out of the 20 years I was in high tech, I've had about 18 years of chronic back pain. And a period of time, several years, when I had migraines. Now when I got divorced, the migraines went away. I also had a bout with cancer early in the 90s. I'm clear, everything's fine. But I get to 2001, and I've obviously not paid very much attention to my body. It's not something that I did sitting in front of a computer. And, but I'm starting to pay attention to my life, and I recognize that the work that I'm doing has no meaning and no purpose. All I was doing, I felt like, was putting information out into the world. I worked at Getty Images. They're the ones who put out the stock photography. Beautiful photos, lovely. I was in charge of the group that puts out the website each and every week, and I thought, what am I doing? Who cares about all this information? And so I went to my boss. I don't know if you remember, but in 2001, all the dot-coms were laying off. And all my colleagues were very concerned. If they got laid off, there were no jobs to get. But I went to my boss and I said, you gotta lay me off. I'm done. I'm done. But I need severance. You know, I needed to be laid off. So bless his heart, a few weeks later, the HR person walks into my office, hands me a pink slip in a box, and says, the guard will be here in an hour to escort you out. Because that's what they did back then, because they were afraid people were going to, you know, somehow do some security thing, right? We had all these computer stuff. So I took the hour, put all my 20 years of being in high tech in the box, went around, said my goodbyes to everyone, took all my business cards, taped them all in a row and taped them up all around my office, right? The guard walks in, and I handed my box. He says, come on, I'll escort you out. I'm walking down, right? And he's like, oh my God, you're the first person who's been excited about this. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I have no idea. And I walked out, and I really had no idea. And it took me about 9 months to find the work that I now do and that I'm presenting, which is Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy. So recognize now, I've gone from high-tech to 2 fields, yoga and therapy, okay? And it's a whole other story of how you get from high-tech to yoga therapy. But needless to say, I'm now in yoga. Now, if you think about a yoga class, how many people are women versus men in that class? A lot of women. And if you think about therapy, well, just look around this room. How many women to men? So now I've got this double whammy, okay? I'm in yoga and therapy filled with women. I no longer stand out, right? Now it's important for me to fit in. It's important for me to be a part of a community, in fact, a part of 2 communities, the yoga community and the therapy community. I now pay attention to what I wear depending on where I'm going to be, right? And so if I was in front of a bunch of yogis today, I'd be wearing my yoga clothes, right? This is about as, comfy as I get around therapists. So this is my therapy clothes. But I put a little more makeup on, right? It's like, come on, yeah. Now, so I have these 2 parts of me, the fitting in. But I still have the standing out part, right? It's still there. And in fact, it's important for me to stand out, especially right now. I want this posture, right? I want to be interesting and creative and unique, and I want you all to think that, right? Because I'm trying to build my practice, and I want you all to love this work so much that you go, oh, that's fascinating, that's interesting. I want to work with her, right? So I have this choice. Now, so polar pairs, it's not like having a red shirt and a blue shirt, right? And you say, oh, today I'm going to choose the blue shirt, right? Resolved, we're done. So it's not a red or blue. It's a fit in, stand out, relax, tense. What else do I have? Let go, hold on, pleasure, pain, right? One doesn't happen without the other. And I'm not looking to balance them, right? I have a whole talk that I give on debunking the myth of balance, because I really believe that all this talk about finding balance is creating more stress. We're not going to go there today. But what I am looking at doing is exactly what, so this doesn't show up very well, but Tom Horvath, who wrote this book, Sex, Drugs, Gambling, Chocolate. I figure any book that starts with sex and ends with chocolate is one that I want to read. But it's great because he's actually talking about this conflict, right, of these polar pairs, these things that can't, that work in tandem, right? And for him, because he's talking about addiction, he's aware of the substance-induced euphoria versus the health. So there's this conflict between the euphoria and the health, right? And he says what you really want to do is recognize that those actually exist. Recognize them and examine it. And then negotiate. They get to negotiate 2 parts together, right? So today I negotiated. Today I said, I need to fit in a little bit. So what am I going to wear? And how am I going to put on my makeup, right? And now I need to stand out. So this one needs to really pump up right now. This is my posture. This is my stance. Right? And how did I get there? Through my body. It was this shift in my body that allowed me to discover these two parts, right? There's this wonderful talk that Amy Cuddy, have you ever heard of TED Talks? Most people know them, yeah. So they're wonderful, right? So Amy Cuddy is a social psychologist who's a Harvard professor, and she's doing her research. And her research started with, okay, we know that the mind can change the body, right? Placebo effect is one of those things that we know. But her question was, can the body change the mind, right? And she, of course, says yes, otherwise I wouldn't be referring to her. And so can our bodies change our minds? So don't move and notice how you're sitting. Just notice how you're sitting. Like maybe you're kind of, writing a little bit and you're a little hunched over. Maybe your body's sort of open, maybe an arm's across a chair, next to you or so. So just notice your body. Now, you all are giving me cues, right? Our body language gives cues to those outside of you. So if I see someone writing really furiously, I think, oh, maybe I'm talking too fast, I should slow down. If I see someone yawning, and a couple people yawning, I think, oh, I'm boring, I better pick it up, right? So you all are giving me cues. And she said, yes, we know that we do that. But she says, can our bodies change our own minds, right? So it's not that we're giving cues out to others, but can me standing in this posture of, oh, aren't I interesting? Feeding it from my body, does my mind finally say, oh, I am interesting, right? And can I then become it, right? Can I then become interesting? So that's her question. And the way that we're going to use that question is to use the work that I found, Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy, all right? So, and let me say, I used, just to finish my story, I used Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy in a book, in one book, to heal my chronic back pain. I noticed I was getting clients who were coming into me who had chronic back pain. We weren't even working on it because they were involved in working on something else, but they would get up and they go, my back pain's gone. And I finally thought, why am I not doing this for myself? Why am I not really paying attention? And so I took a week. I don't know why it happened in a week, but it did. I took a week. I read a book called Healing Back Pain by John Sarno. And I received 2 Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy sessions. And I had a mantra, and the mantra was, there's nothing structurally wrong with me. And in 1 week, my back pain was gone. Totally gone, not to come back. Now, what was really fascinating, though, for me was, the back pain was gone, but it took me a year or so before I could change my mind's beliefs. So I had to, when I had back pain, I would be very careful about picking up a suitcase or something, because I knew I would pull my back out. And so I had to stop in my mind, stopping myself from doing things. So instead, I then had to go to my suitcase and go, I can pick you up, I'll be fine. And of course I was. But I had to make a really conscious choice to be changing my mind. And so it took about a year before I realized that, I was no longer having to do that. I was just picking up a suitcase without having to think about it. So, Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy. Now, you'll notice those 2 points, yoga and therapy. So, are we doing yoga? Well, here's what happens. Those parties you go to? And I'm new. I'm down here in San Diego. I'm trying to build my practice. And so oftentimes you go to a party and you're constantly networking, right? And what's the famous question that they ask? What do you do? Right? And sometimes I'll go into my quippy 30-second elevator speech, but there are times when I really just don't want to go there and I say, I do yoga therapy, or I do therapeutic yoga. And always what I get back is, where do you teach? Well, let me tell you, I don't teach yoga. I wouldn't know how to teach a good yoga class as it's come to be known. So in the Western world, yoga has come to be known as, just kind of picture this pretty young thing up in front of a bunch of people, sweaty bodies, you know, coaxing people to put their foot behind their head, all with this beautiful smile on. So it's become this really wonderful, rich fitness, bliss revolution. There is nothing wrong with that, but it's not what I do, okay? So Western world has been, and that's Bikram, by the way. So anyone who knows yoga, a lot of times people say, oh, I love the hot yoga. That's who started it, Bikram, right there. So yoga has come to be known, or let's just say, yoga is, there are 8 limbs. It is a practice. It is a practice of yoga. And what is yoga? It's Sanskrit for union, or to yoke, okay? Sanskrit for union. So here we are working with polar pairs, and what a perfect practice this is to notice and come into awareness using all these tools, the breath, concentration, meditation, postures, just as you're in a posture right now of sitting, right? Postures. Specifically, Phoenix Rising uses limb number 2, which is a niyama. How you say that, okay? A personal observance and specifically self-study. So for anyone who is a yogi and would like to hear the Sanskrit word, and I'll just tell you, Sanskrit is meant to be a language that is sung. So the word for self-study is swadhyaya. Is that beautiful? Swadhyaya. Don't you want to sing that one? So that's what Phoenix Rising is about, self-study, the study, okay? The yoga of self-study. All right, so that's the yoga part. Get it? I'm not gonna, I know some people actually ask, should I bring a yoga mat? Get it? I don't do that. Not that we don't use mats, but they're a little softer and gentler. Therapy. So the tradition that we pull from specifically is Carl Rogers. And what's so perfect about Carl Rogers is one of his core values, which is we all have within us what we need to know in order to heal and enhance our lives, right? It's all within us. And as he said, this is one of my favorite quotes of his, it is to experience that I must return again and again to find a closer approximation to truth as it is in becoming in me. So that's what we're going to do today. It is to experience that we will turn again and again today so that you may find a closer approximation to truth as it is in becoming in you. And because we all know what's within us, and our clients know what they need in order to heal and enhance their life, and we're going to be using the body, just consider the question for you, for your clients, of what can happen if you move from the body to the mind. So we're going to start in the body. All right. Using Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy, there are 3 key components to it: awareness, acceptance, and action. Okay? Awareness, acceptance, and action. I've been told as a speaker you're supposed to repeat things, so awareness, acceptance, and action. Okay. And know that I'm taking you through Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy, an actual session, what we would do in a session. And let me tell you, Phoenix Rising is done one-on-one with people, just like you would be sitting in front of someone in a chair. I sit in front of someone who's on a mat. Okay, it's a big, soft, cushy mat, but it's a mat nonetheless. And it's also done in groups. So where you might do a group therapy that's in a semicircle or a circle, same thing, except we don't use chairs. There are mats in that circle, okay? So we're going to use Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy in order to move through awareness, acceptance, and action, okay? Now here's what happened when I put that slide up. Some of you went like this, or maybe it was the other way. That way, yeah, right? So something happened in your body so that you could read the slide. Some of you may have thought, doesn't she know that slides backwards or sideways? Like, shouldn't she fix that? Judging, that's what our mind does, right? So maybe some mental activity happened. Maybe you were a little annoyed, a little irritated. Emotion, that comes up. Okay? Or maybe you said, maybe I should let her know that that slides sideways. Compassion, that comes out of our spiritual nature. All right? So these are the awarenesses that we're going to work with. I do that for people who are really frustrated and annoyed. And we're working at what we call the edge, okay? It's that place where you notice something's a little bit different. It was that place that happened, the edge for me, when I switched my hands and I went, oh, what's that? Okay? So it might be an uncomfortable place, like you were a little annoyed at the previous slide, but it might also be just this place of curiosity, where something comes up. Okay, so, is that right? All right, so what I'd like you to do now is, because you already know what is inside of you, we're going to find a way to get there. And because I have nothing to teach you, you don't need to write anything down. So what I'd actually like you to do, because we're going to go into a first experience, is put everything aside. So stick it on a chair next to you or underneath your chair. If you've got something, water or something like that, you're going to take a sip. Go ahead and make sure you're not going to be someplace where you're going to kick it over. Okay. Put everything down, and what I'd like you to do is now change your posture so that you come to a place where you can pay attention to your body. Okay? Now, this is the first step of any Phoenix Rising session, is to turn inward and begin to notice these places that you can notice in awareness: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Now, some of you are so good, your eyes are already closed. Eyes will be closed for this. Phoenix Rising is done eyes closed. Why? Because we're looking inward. And as soon as you open your eyes, you engage what is around you. All right? So this is about turning inward. If at any point closing your eyes does not feel appropriate, simply soften your gaze so you can let your eyes just look like a foot or two in front of your toes. Soften your gaze so your lids are down a little. That's up to you. Take a deep breath into your nose. Open your mouth and just sigh it out. Maybe do a few of those sighing out breaths. So here you are, allowing your breath now to become a little more natural. No particular type of breath. You're just sitting and breathing. Now consider that you've never been here working with me, doing this in just this way. This is brand new. You have no idea where this is going to go and what might come of it. So notice what it's like to be in what we call beginner's mind. What's it like to be someplace new? Like a kid who's in a brand new playground, filled with curiosity and wonder. It might, though, also bring up places where you're not quite so comfortable. Right? That gets to be there. And just notice in your breath right now what it's like to be in beginner's mind. And then expand your awareness into your physical body. So notice how you've placed your body, where you put your feet, where you put your hands, your arms, your torso. Notice sensations that you would call maybe a little uncomfortable, as well as sensations that are kind of good right now. Your physical body. Nowhere to go, nothing to figure out, no right or wrong to this. This breath, this moment. Notice where your mind wants to go with all of this. Like maybe you like this or you don't like this. Maybe you're wondering if you're doing it right or wrong, or thinking about what happened on the way here, or what you're going to do afterwards. That's our mind. It judges, it wants. Things about the past and the future. Just your mind. And your emotions. What's it like to be in a place of beginning, of being new? Where do your emotions go right now? Some on the surface and some that maybe you even push away. Don't want that one. Take a deep breath in. Just sigh it out. Now consider your life outside of here. Notice what parts of your life want to be here. And begin to go back in time to the moment when you first decided to sign in or sign up and do this particular talk. And when you did that, consider what you wanted to get out of being here. Maybe it was just a couple of free CEUs, but maybe there was something that was really intriguing to you about the topic. And just see if that's still valid right now. Or now that you're paying attention to yourself, what is it that you'd like to get out of being here? What do you want to explore? What do you want to receive? And let that land as your intention for our time here today. In fact, just kind of stick it in your metaphorical back pocket. We'll take it along on the ride and check in with it later. You don't need to make that happen. Another breath in. Let that go. All right. And then come back into the room. Remember, I'm standing in front of you. People are around you. All right. So that centering and intention setting is always the start of a Phoenix Rising session. And the reason that we do that, well, let me just tell you a story. I work often with therapists, and the therapist walked into my office and for a session, and she says, I'm losing a client, I'm losing a patient in relapse suicide. She's a favorite client of hers, really having a hard time. She's trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go with this? I could do this, I could do that. So she's really in a lot of stress and a lot of what I call compassion fatigue, right? And really struggling with it. She sits down on the mat and we go through that process of centering. And she gets to the intention and she says, I just have to lay down. So she lays down. She said, I cannot work with him anymore. I have to work with me. I'm exhausted. And so I need to relax right now. I need to be quiet. I need to find my own space. So where she thought she was going to come in and do some work around her client, she came in and did some work for herself. That looked very different. So that intention setting in the moment can be very different than when someone just walks into your office and says, this is what I want to work on. It's like, okay, is there a deeper layer underneath that? All right, so centering is where we go. Now we're going to bring one more level of awareness in, okay? So body scan, who's done body scans before? Okay, so I often, when I train people in Phoenix Rising, most often they're therapists these days. When I first started training, it was interesting. There were a lot of yoga teachers who were coming in, but these days I get a good 50 to 80% are therapists. So I just really want to honor you all for recognizing and building on your knowledge. That said, body scan is always something people come in and say, oh, I know what it is. So what I want to offer is that you actually stay in beginner's mind, that this is something new, and that not only do you experience it, because we're going to experience again and again, but that you also stay open to what the process is, and then we'll come back and talk about your experience and why we do it the way we do it versus the way you've done it before. Okay? So again, everything goes to the side, and I'm actually going to have you stand up. Now, and you're more than welcome to take shoes off if you want, but you're going to stand. And if standing doesn't feel appropriate for like 10 minutes, you'll be standing, okay? So if that doesn't feel appropriate, you're more than welcome to sit. I do work with clients who are in wheelchairs. And so sitting is their stance, right? Now, if standing might be a little dicey because of course your eyes will be closed as well, and feel free if you need more space to move out, and you can turn your body in any direction you want, right? Nothing I'm going to teach you, so feel free to do that. But you can always put your hand out onto a chair that's in front of you or something if you need, okay? So, all right. So find your stance, kind of move around until it's like, yep, that's it right there. Allow your eyes to close or soften your gaze. Take a deep breath in. And sigh it out. All right. So begin to pay attention to just the bottoms of your feet. Just the bottoms of your feet. And just notice how you chose to stand here. Notice the weight of your feet reaching down to the carpet or in your shoes, and the ground sort of coming up to meet the bottoms of your feet. And then pay attention to the top of your feet. And to your lower legs. So what you may notice is sensation. Thoughts may come to you, images, an emotion, just your lower legs. Moving up into your upper legs. There might be weight or temperature or color. Upper legs. And then higher into your hips and your pelvis, noticing the personality there and the sort of core part of your body. Watch your thoughts, your images, sensations, coming up higher into the mid part of your spine, your rib cage around the front, middle part of your torso. Higher into your shoulders. Whatever you notice, no right or wrong to this. Working down the arms, upper arms, lower arms, all the way down to your hands and fingers. Bring your awareness back up to your neck, your throat, your head. Notice where the tongue is resting inside the mouth. And then whole body once again, from head to toe, whole body. Standing, breathing, nowhere to go, nothing to figure out, whole body. Now imagine you could divide your body and begin to pay attention to just the right side. Just your right side now. And notice its sensations, thoughts, images, colors. Your right side. Notice its personality. Who's here on the right side? And then watch the transition as you begin to move from your right side to your left side. Just watch where you've drawn that line. And come in now to the left side, your left side, and find its colors, images, thoughts, emotions. Your left side. Who's here on your left side? And then watch the transition once again as you bring the left side back together with the right side. Notice if that seems easy to do or a little more difficult today. And come back to whole body again, left and right together, whole body, whole body. And just take a moment and notice what happened through that body scan. What happened? What stands out about it? What feels significant about it? And then what I'd like you to do is take in this consideration that you stay in silence as you come back into the group. You open your eyes, you look and find someone who's nearby you, and you just go and stand near each other. All right? So in silence, find a partner. Okay? All right. Everyone got someone? And if there's an extra person, you can always have a third in this. So what I'd like you to do is turn towards each other. And there's going to be 2 roles here, 2 roles. There's going to be the speaker, and what I want you to speak on, 3 is fine. You'll know in a second. Okay, so the speaker is going to speak on what stood out for you, right? What stood out? And you only have a minute. This is a 2-hour talk that I'm putting into about 80 minutes, so you don't have long to talk, sorry. So just a minute as to what stood out. And the other role is the listener. So in true Rogerian style, hold your silence, bring loving presence, right, to the person in front of you, that active listening, okay? And just watch yourself. Watch when you want to go, yeah, me too, or start giving advice. It's like, yeah, that's our experience, right? So you can notice that experience, all right? So the people who will be, the first speaker is the one with the shortest hair. How's that? And the first listener has the longest hair. All right? I'll give time awareness, so go ahead, begin.
For me, I noticed the struggle between, okay, do I follow this and do the exercise, or do I look at my camera and be the camera guy? I wrestled with what Soleil would say to do. Okay. And I felt my resistance, and I had to kind of dig into that. She'd say, no, inside the camera, just cool it. So I could feel my resistance to it. As far as left and right, that was interesting. I'd never done that before. I've done a lot of body scans. I quickly raced off into the
And switch, if you haven't already. Speaker becomes listener, listener becomes speaker.
And I noticed between the left and the right felt heavier. And I don't know, the left felt lighter. You feel? And then I had a little difficulty bringing them together.
But I did have this person waiting for me.
If you have a third person, let the third person become speaker.
I do yoga.
She does a lot of correcting people. She doesn't do yoga. The word has become unfortunate. 20 years ago, they took that name as a system. And so she has 2 years. No, I don't think that.
And then thank your partner or partners.
Thank you.
And then turn towards the front again. And you can sit if you want. I love when you all get also active and stuff. It's like, what happened to the silence? Okay, so I'd love to hear, I don't have a whole lot of time, but I'd love to hear if anyone would like to speak to something that was really rather interesting for you, and something that just needs to be spoken. Yeah.
I was very struck by the difference between the right and left side. I could have colored them differently. One had more mass than the other. One was solid colors, one had patterns. I mean, it was just a striking difference.
Yeah. So real difference between right and left. Did others notice that as well? Were you a little surprised by it? Yeah. Colors, patterns, yeah. perfect. I feel like you're a shill for me because we're going to move into that even more. So yeah. Those splits are really interesting, and they're so useful in getting to those polar pairs. And you'll see, we're going to dive a little bit further into, well, what is the difference and why the difference and who is that in me that's different, you know, on the one side or the other. So, perfect, thank you. It's a great tool, that split, for finding those different parts of us. And there are a lot of ways of doing splits. So you might do left and right. I noticed that's the one that a lot of people respond to who are kind of new to this practice. But it's also interesting to do splits upper and lower, front and back. You might have someone who's like all head, you know, and you want to see how do they relate with their body. So you might split head body, right? So the splits are really great for that, and we're going to dive into it. So for those of you who have done body scans before, what makes this different? Anything in particular stand out?
Well, I normally do it lying down or sitting down. Then standing is pretty.
And what did you find in the standing? She normally does it lying down or sitting. Yeah. So
well, I notice more. It is easier to identify the tension in the body when you're standing.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice in the left side there's much more tense.
So in standing you were able to notice more.
Yeah.
Thank you. Another shell. Our body scans are about noticing more. It's about paying attention. And often when I teach body scans, what therapists come in with is say, oh, I've done body scan, right? But I do them lying down. And the intention behind it is to relax, right? To not pay attention to that tension, right? So, and I know that well. So back in the 70s was the first time I did a body scan. Now, I was in my teens. You'll all figure out how old I am. But my mom was going through becoming a therapist. And she was all part of the me generation and feminism and all that stuff, right? So there were all these practices around, I'm okay, you are okay. Oh God, did I hate being in that, right? Because I was the guinea pig. And so I must have walked into her bedroom at one point and said, I can't sleep. And she said, I know what we can do. And she laid me down on my bed and started doing body scan, right? She started, relax your feet, relax your lower legs, relax your, I think I got to my hips and I was out. In fact, every time that I use this technique for relaxation, I get to my hips and I'm out. And so, but notice that there's this tone that's different. Not only do you lie down, but you start going, oh, relax, relax this, relax that, relax that. Well, that's trying to make something happen. And that's not wrong. It's just not what we do in Phoenix Rising, right? We're trying to get people to pay attention. So our tone needs to be aware. Okay, this also is part of the Rogerian work. What's our tone? What's our pacing? I didn't want to stand up here and say, notice your feet. Notice your hips, right? You guys would just, like, you know, wanted to sit back down again. So also open language. So I didn't say, notice the heat in your hand, right? Because what if you didn't have heat in your hand? I didn't say, divide your body in half, because I don't know where the line is, right? So all I said was, notice your right side. And then I said, notice where you drew the line as you begin to come to your left side. Did anyone notice it wasn't necessarily in half? Did anyone have sort of a bigger side or anything? Yeah. So we want to keep our language as open as possible and our tone as clear as possible as that. So the body scan, doing it this way and offering the split is, you know, let's see. Okay, so the body scan and offering the split is one way of getting to those two parts. So, step 2, Acceptance, remember, awareness, acceptance, action. So put everything away. We're going into the next experience, right? It is to experience we will turn again and again. So I'm going to have you come back to standing again. Feel free to take your shoes off or whatever you want to do in order to find some comfort. If standing does not feel appropriate for you, you can certainly do the sitting as well. Okay. Once again, close your eyes. Come into your own breath, your own body. If closing your eyes is not right, just soften your gaze. Take a deep breath in and just land here in this neutral place. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. Okay. So I want you to pick one of the sides that seem to be the loudest for you, or seem to, for some reason, be most interesting. So go back to your right side, or your left side, or maybe it's just a part of that side, or some other place that feels really loud for you right now. Go back to the experience of noticing its sensations and colors and patterns and thoughts and images on that loud side. Now, I don't know which side it is, so I'm going to call it the loud side. All right. And then exaggerate it. Make it a little bit bigger. Shine a light on it, right? Let it really make itself known. And you might do that just by imagining it being a little bit bigger somehow, but you might also want to move your body in a certain way so that it makes it stand out. Just notice which posture comes into your body, whether you're imagining it or actually doing it. And just explore that posture. Explore what happens. Who is here in this loud side? Who is here? In fact, you can ask, who are you? Who are you? Or what are you? And let it answer, I am who? Maybe it's a quality that shows up. Maybe it's an actual person who answers. This is the loud part. Got it? Really get it in your body. Get that posture. Now I want you to switch now to the quieter part. The side that you didn't go to. Or the part of you for some reason that just feels quiet. And in the same way, begin to notice its characteristics again. Its thoughts and images. Its emotions and colors, patterns, weight, temperature. The quiet side here. Quiet side. And then exaggerate it. Make it bigger. And that might be putting your body into a posture so that you can really get to know it. Really get to know it. This quiet side. And then ask it, who are you? Who are you? Or what are you? And let it answer, I am what? And then let it really come into your body. Okay? See if this side is familiar in some way. Whoever answered, like, how old is this side? How old? Maybe it's been with you a really long time before you could even remember. It might be pre-verbal, right? Maybe it's just showing up right now. And then shift once again to the loud side. Okay, go back to the loud side, bring it into your body, bring it into the posture that you were using, the loud side, right? See how familiar it is, how old is it? And allow the loud side. It was loud for a reason, so let it now talk. Let it communicate with the quieter side. What does it have to say? And just notice, it might speak in words, but it might also speak in other ways. It might give you an image or a sensation. Okay? So what does that loud side say into the quieter side? And then move your body, your posture, your whole noticing to the quiet side. Let it take in what the loud side just said. Back to the quiet side. And let it answer. Okay? Let it answer. What's this quiet side then have to say to the loud side? And then shift again, go over to the loud side. And just keep this conversation going. Back to the loud side. What's it saying now to the quiet side? How's it communicating? So I'm going to go quiet for about a minute so you can go back and forth between the loud and quiet side. And I'm going to let you have your own conversation there. Take a deep breath in and let that conversation end. Just let those two parts know that you can come back to them and complete more of that negotiating later on. So you got the two sides of you, right? So now what I'd like you to do as you come back into the room, turn again to your partner. And all I'd like you to do is just introduce your two parts, okay, to your partner, like fitting in, standing out, okay? So just really quickly, introduce the two parts.
One of the students in the Bible grade.
Thoroughly unprepared for this part. Busy on the camera. So, I have to be honest, we don't have parts. So,
All right, come on back.
I began to experience a little bit of
All of a sudden,
until I said,
conversations
oh,
happen.
well, it's, I got to